It was a quiet Sunday afternoon when the farm seemed to be bathed in an eerie calm, just as it always was when the kids were out playing with the neighbors, and I had the house to myself. You know, the kind of peaceful afternoon that feels like everything is in its place, that nothing could possibly go wrong? Well, that was exactly the kind of day it was when I noticed it, the shirt. It was a simple shirt, nothing too fancy. But I knew it wasn't mine. It wasn't even close. The pale blue, soft cotton with the faded stitching had never graced my closet, and certainly didn't belong in my wife's collection of farm-ready clothes. My first instinct was to shrug it off, to think, oh, maybe she just borrowed it from someone. But then, I spotted the tag. The damn tag. I know this sounds crazy, but it felt like a cold punch to the gut. There, in bold letters, Jasper's Veterinary Supplies. I couldn't help it. I was frozen. 1,000 thoughts ran through my head, none of them good. I'd known Dr. Cooper, the local vet, for years. Friendly guy, good at his job, nothing remarkable about him. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized just how much time Katie, my wife, had been spending at the clinic recently. Oh, it's just the animals, she'd say. They need their checkups, you know how it is. But today? Today something was different. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing a huge piece of the puzzle. I decided to take action, though not in the way you might think. Instead of storming out to confront her, I did what any man would do in my situation. I went to the fridge, grabbed a cold beer, and sat down on the couch. This was a matter I needed to think through carefully. My mind raced. Could it really be true? Was she cheating on me? It wasn't just the shirt. It was the way she'd been acting lately, distant, distracted, always making excuses. My gut told me I was right. And as much as I hated the thought, I knew I had to face the music. But I wasn't about to let my emotions dictate my actions. No, this time, I'd be deliberate, calculated. I wasn't going to lose my cool. Not this time. Before I could finish that beer, Katie walked through the door. She smiled, the kind of smile she always gave me when she knew I'd been thinking about something. You know, that smile that says, I know you're up to something, but I'm not sure what yet. I looked at her, my heart pounding, but I kept my voice steady. You've been spending a lot of time at the vet's place lately, I said, casually. Everything okay? She raised an eyebrow, clearly thrown off by my casual tone. Yeah, it's fine. Just a few checkups. Why? I didn't answer right away. I wasn't ready to reveal what I had found, not yet. Instead, I turned my attention to the kids playing outside, trying to keep my composure. But inside, the storm was brewing. What was I supposed to do now? Was I ready to confront her? Would I be able to hear the truth if she admitted it? I wasn't sure. And that was when the unexpected happened. Katie took a deep breath, clearly trying to act normal. I think we need to talk, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Can we meet tomorrow? Just the two of us? I've been avoiding something. I paused, the beer halfway to my lips. This wasn't the reaction I'd been expecting, but it was all too familiar. She wasn't acting like someone who was about to confess. She was acting like someone who had already made up her mind. Well, we're already talking, I said, trying to hide the bitterness creeping into my words. Her face faltered, but she didn't give in. No, Tom. Not like this. She walked away, leaving me with 1,000 unanswered questions. The night passed in a blur. I couldn't stop thinking about the shirt, about Katie's strange behavior, and about what she'd said just before walking out. It felt like a heavy weight on my chest, like I couldn't breathe with it pressing down on me. I had no idea what to do next. I didn't want to confront her right away. No, I needed more time to figure out the situation, to make sure I wasn't overreacting. But then again, everything in my gut screamed that this was the moment when the truth would come out. And deep down, I knew that things would never be the same between us again, no matter what happened. The following day, I found myself pacing around the house, just waiting for that moment. Katie had texted me earlier, confirming that she'd meet me at the local diner, the one where we used to go after a long day of farm work, where the smell of fresh baked pies and greasy diner food would mix with the buzz of old town gossip. I knew exactly where we were going, and for some reason, I could feel the tension in my chest growing tighter with each passing minute. Was this really the end? I couldn't help but wonder, but I wasn't about to back down now. I had to know the truth. When I arrived, I found a booth by the window, just like the ones we used to sit at when we first started dating. The kind of place where the waitress knew your name, and you didn't have to say a word before she brought you a coffee. As I waited, I watched the cars pass by, trying to keep my mind from racing. I wanted to be angry, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized how unfair it would be to attack her without hearing her side. No, I needed to keep my head cool. I needed to hear what she had to say first. She arrived a few minutes later, and as soon as I saw her walking through the door, a strange mixture of emotions hit me. She still had that same graceful, confident way of moving, but something was different. She looked tired, as though she hadn't slept in days, her eyes carrying the weight of an unspoken confession. I watched as she walked toward me, her footsteps slow, deliberate. When she slid into the booth across from me, the air between us felt thick, charged. She didn't speak right away, just sat there, folding her hands in front of her. I could see the unease in her face. She was stalling, trying to figure out how to start. "Tom," she finally said, breaking the silence. I've been thinking a lot about how to say this, and honestly, I don't know where to begin." Her voice was shaky, a hint of fear in her eyes, but also something else, something I couldn't quite place. She had always been good at hiding her emotions, but today, it was as though she couldn't keep the walls up anymore. "I need to tell you something that's been eating me up inside for a while now." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. The words I wanted to speak were stuck in my throat. I wanted to yell, to demand the truth right then and there, but I stayed silent, allowing her to continue. "I've made a mistake," Katie said, her gaze dropping to the table. Her fingers twitched nervously, like she wanted to fidget, but she kept her hands still. "I've been seeing someone else. I never meant for it to happen, but it did. It's been going on for months, and I can't keep lying to you anymore." The words hit me like a freight train, but I didn't react the way I thought I would. I wasn't angry, not yet, anyway. Instead, I felt an overwhelming sense of sadness, as though something inside me had been ripped open and I couldn't put it back together. There was no shouting, no crying, just a quiet, numbing silence that hung between us like a thick fog. "I know this isn't easy to hear, Tom," she continued, her voice growing softer, "but I need you to understand that it wasn't because I don't love you. It's just, I don't know what happened. I was lonely, and he was there for me. I never meant to hurt you, I swear. But I need to be honest with you. I'm so sorry." I sat there, unable to respond. Part of me wanted to get up and walk out, to leave her there in the booth and never look back. But another part of me, the part that still loved her despite everything, wanted to understand. To know why this had happened. To figure out what had gone wrong in our marriage, what had driven her to seek comfort in the arms of someone else. But the answers didn't come, and the more I thought about it, the harder it became to breathe. Katie looked up at me then, her eyes searching mine, waiting for some kind of reaction. "Tom, can you forgive me? I want to make this right. I want to fix what I've broken." Her words were desperate, and they made something inside me snap. It wasn't anger, not exactly. It was a wave of frustration, of disbelief that I had let myself get to this point, that I had allowed this to happen. The part of me that wanted to move on, wanted to walk away, was growing stronger with every passing second. But I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I wasn't ready to make any decisions yet. I needed time to think. "I don't know what to say, Katie," I finally muttered, my voice barely a whisper. "I really don't." She nodded, understanding. But there was no relief in her expression, just a deep sorrow that seemed to settle over her like a dark cloud. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away," she said softly. "But I do hope that we can talk about this more. I just wanted you to know the truth." She stood up, then, moving toward the door without looking back. I stayed in the booth, the weight of her confession pressing down on me. And as she left, a new question filled my mind. What now? What was I supposed to do with this information? I didn't know. But I knew one thing for sure. Life on this farm would never be the same again. The days that followed Katie's confession felt like a blur, an emotional fog that clouded everything. Each morning, I would wake up in the same bed, surrounded by the same familiar sights of our home, the farmhouse kitchen where we'd spent countless hours together, the worn couch where we'd once sat and talked for hours about life and our plans for the future. But everything felt different now. Every corner of the house seemed to remind me of the betrayal that hung over us like a dark cloud. It was suffocating, and yet, I didn't know what to do with the weight of it all. There was a strange kind of stillness in the air now, one that left me unable to focus on anything for long. The farm that had once been a sanctuary now felt like a prison. I tried to occupy my mind with work, with the endless chores around the farm that always needed attention. There were fences to mend, animals to care for, and hay to stack, but none of it helped. I couldn't escape the thoughts that kept creeping in, uninvited. How long had this been going on? Was it just the vet, or were there others? The uncertainty gnawed at me, but I wasn't ready to ask more questions. I wasn't ready to hear any more painful truths. Not yet. A week passed before Katie came to me again, this time with a sense of urgency in her step, a new determination in her eyes that I hadn't seen before. She wanted to talk. She needed to talk, she said. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I agreed, figuring I might get some more answers, or at the very least, some kind of closure. We arranged to meet at the same diner where we'd had our last conversation. It felt fitting, like a place where the past could be left behind, or at least, where I could try to make sense of it all. When I arrived, I was already prepared for the worst. Katie sat at the same booth by the window, her hands folded on the table, her gaze focused somewhere outside, distant. She didn't look up when I sat down, and for a moment, we both sat in silence. The sounds of the diner, the clink of silverware, the hum of the coffee machine, the chatter of the few patrons, seemed oddly loud in the quiet space between us. I wanted to say something, anything, to break the tension, but I held back, waiting for her to speak. I've been thinking a lot, she said finally, her voice soft but steady. About everything. About us. About what I did. She paused, her eyes flicking toward me before quickly dropping back to the table. I can't keep pretending that nothing's wrong. I know I've hurt you, and I know I've broken something that can't be fixed easily. But Tom, I want to try. I want to make things right. I've made a terrible mistake, and I don't know if I deserve forgiveness, but I'm asking for it anyway. I'm asking for a chance to show you that I can be the wife you deserve. I listened, but part of me wanted to interrupt, to yell at her for even thinking I could forgive her so easily. But instead, I did the opposite. I stayed silent. There was something in her voice that sounded so genuine, so regretful, that it made me hesitate. I had no idea what it would take to rebuild the trust we'd lost, but I couldn't ignore the part of me that still cared for her, the part that had shared so many years of my life with her. I wasn't sure I could forgive her, not yet, but I wasn't ready to let go either. Why? The words slipped out before I could stop them, and I immediately regretted it. I could see the guilt on her face, the way her shoulders hunched as though bracing for the blow. But she answered, her voice barely above a whisper. It wasn't about him, Tom. It wasn't about needing someone else. It was about me. About feeling like I was disappearing in our marriage, like I wasn't enough anymore. I was lost, and I thought maybe someone could help me find myself again. But I was wrong. And now, I'm paying the price. Her words were heavy, and for a moment, I just sat there, taking them in. She was asking for forgiveness, but did I even want to give it? Could I? I didn't know. The idea of trying to rebuild our marriage felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down at the uncertainty below. It was terrifying, but at the same time, there was a small part of me, just a flicker, that wondered if it was worth trying. I took a deep breath, running a hand through my hair as I thought about it. Katie, I don't know. I really don't. The truth was, I didn't have the answers. I didn't know if I could get past the betrayal, or if I even wanted to. But what I did know was that our life together, the life I built, was shattered now. No amount of apologies could change that. The damage had already been done. She looked at me then, her eyes brimming with tears. Please, Tom, she said, her voice trembling. I love you. I never wanted to hurt you. Just give me a chance. A real chance. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll fight for us. Please, just don't give up on me. For a moment, I thought about what she was asking. Was I strong enough to forgive her? To move past this? Or would I always see her betrayal in everything she did? My heart ached just thinking about it. But I wasn't ready to make any decisions. Not yet. I stood up, my mind racing. I don't know, Katie. I need time. I need space to figure out what this all means, and what I need. I can't promise anything right now, but I will think about it. She nodded, her face filled with both hope and sorrow. I'll wait, she whispered. I'll wait as long as you need. As I walked out of the diner, the weight of it all pressed down on me. I didn't know if we could ever go back to what we were. But I also didn't know if I could move on without knowing I'd tried. The next few days would be the hardest of my life. But one thing was certain, I wasn't going to rush into anything. Not yet. I needed time to heal, and I needed time to think. The days after that conversation felt like a slow crawl, each one stretching longer than the last. Katie and I barely spoke, both of us stuck in the limbo of not knowing where to go from here. I went through the motions of daily life, feeding the animals, fixing fences, checking on the crops, but my mind was never truly on the farm. It was always on her, on the betrayal, on whether or not I could forgive her. I spent hours lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, my thoughts tangled in knots. How could I move forward with someone who had hurt me so deeply? How could I trust her again when the foundation of our entire life together had been shaken? I didn't know, and it scared the hell out of me. One evening, as I was sitting on the porch, nursing a drink and watching the sun set behind the hills, I got a call from Katie. I hesitated for a moment before answering, unsure of what to expect. Her voice came through the phone, soft and tentative, like she was walking on eggshells. "Tom," she said, "can we meet again? Just one more time. I have something I need to say. Something I've been holding back." I didn't know why, but something in her tone made me agree. Maybe I was tired of the silence between us, tired of the uncertainty. Or maybe, deep down, I still believed there was a part of her that wanted to make things right. Either way, I told her I'd meet her at the old barn, the one on the edge of the property. It was a place that had always been special to us. We'd spend hours there, building things, fixing the roof, cleaning out the stalls. It was a place where we'd shared our hopes and dreams, a place where everything felt simple. But now, it felt like a place where things had turned complicated. Still, it was where we were going to meet. When I arrived, the barn was quiet, the only sound the distant calls of the birds and the rustle of the wind through the tall grass. I waited for a few minutes, my heart beating a little faster than usual, unsure of what I was going to say or what she was going to tell me. It had been so hard to get to this point, and yet, here we were, still trying to figure out how to fix what was broken. I wasn't sure if I even wanted to fix it, but part of me couldn't let go. It was the part of me that remembered the good times, the moments when we had been happy together. Katie arrived a few minutes later, her steps slow and hesitant as she walked up to where I stood. She looked different, somehow. There was a weariness in her eyes, a kind of sadness that hadn't been there before. Her expression was a mix of hope and guilt, like she wasn't sure if this was the right thing to do, but she was going to do it anyway. "Tom," she said softly, her voice trembling a little. "I'm sorry. I should have said this a long time ago, but I didn't know how. I've been lying to you, not just about him, but about myself. About what I need, what I want. And I've realized I don't know who I am anymore. Not without you." I didn't say anything. I just stood there, watching her, trying to figure out what was happening. She took a deep breath and stepped closer, her hands wringing nervously in front of her. "I've been trying to figure out what I want, what I need from this relationship, and I know I've hurt you. I don't expect you to forgive me, not yet. I don't even know if we can fix this, but I want you to know that I'm willing to try. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I don't want to lose you, Tom. I can't lose you." The words hung in the air between us, heavy with the weight of everything that had happened. I couldn't tell if she was being sincere or if she was just trying to make herself feel better. My mind was spinning, caught between the past and the present. A part of me wanted to reach out, to pull her close, to believe that maybe we could get through this. But another part of me was still angry, still hurt by the betrayal, by the lies. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know if I could believe her, if I could ever trust her again. The thought of starting over, of building something new from the wreckage of what we had, felt like an impossible task. Katie seemed to sense my hesitation. She stepped back, her face falling as though she had already known my answer. "I understand," she said quietly, her voice almost a whisper. "I don't expect you to forgive me right now. I just wanted you to know that I'm still here, still fighting for us." I stood there for a moment, the silence stretching between us. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I turned away and walked toward the barn door. As I opened it, the sound of the wind seemed to swirl around me, like nature itself was urging me to make a decision. It felt like I was standing at a crossroads, not just in my marriage, but in my life. Could I really move forward with her? Or was it time to let go and start fresh? Before I could decide, there was a voice behind me. "Tom, please don't walk away." I turned around to see Katie standing there, her face filled with both fear and determination. For a moment, I thought she might say something else, something that would change everything. But instead, she just stood there, waiting for me to speak. I could see the uncertainty in her eyes, the vulnerability she had never shown before. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But maybe it was the first step toward it. "I don't know, Katie," I said, my voice quieter than I intended. "I don't know what comes next. But we'll figure it out, together or not at all." And with that, the door to our future remained open, just a crack. We weren't there yet, but we weren't done, either. For the first time in a long while, I had hope, a fragile, tentative hope that things might still be possible. The following days were filled with a strange quietness. the kind of silence that settles when you don't know what comes next. Katie and I barely spoke after that day in the barn. We went about our routines, feeding the animals, making sure the farm ran smoothly. But there was a noticeable distance between us, like we were both walking around a deep, invisible chasm that neither of us knew how to cross. I spent my evenings sitting on the porch, watching the sun dip behind the hills, lost in my thoughts. I tried to distract myself with work, but my mind kept returning to Katie and everything that had happened. Could I really forgive her? Could we move on from this? Part of me wanted to believe that we could, but another part of me wasn't sure I was strong enough to rebuild what had been broken. Katie, for her part, was doing her best to give me space, but I could tell she was struggling. She'd leave little notes around the house, asking how I was, trying to spark conversation, but I wasn't ready to respond. It was easier to pretend everything was fine, to not face the reality of what had happened. She tried to keep things normal, keeping the house as it had always been, but there was a tension in the air that was impossible to ignore. I couldn't stop thinking about her betrayal, and I knew she was carrying the weight of her guilt. I saw it in the way her shoulders slumped, the way she couldn't meet my eyes for too long. She knew the damage had been done, and no matter how hard she tried, it wasn't something she could undo. One evening, after a long day working on the farm, I found myself standing by the barn again, staring out at the horizon. The sky was painted with streaks of orange and pink, the evening settling in with a gentle coolness. I had been avoiding thinking about what came next, but now, standing there alone, I couldn't avoid it anymore. I had to make a decision. Could I stay with Katie, knowing what she had done? Could we find a way back to what we had, or was it too late? I didn't have all the answers, but I knew I couldn't keep living in this limbo. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine when it wasn't. Just as I was lost in thought, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned to find Katie standing there, her face pale, her eyes tired, but there was something else there too, a look of determination. She wasn't running away from the situation anymore. She wasn't hiding behind her excuses or her guilt. She had come to a decision. "Tom," she said, her voice steady. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about what I want. And I know what I've done, and I know how much I've hurt you. But I don't want to leave. I don't want to give up on us. I know I've made mistakes, but I still love you. I want to fight for what we have. I want to make things right." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I had been prepared for another round of apologies, another attempt at making excuses, but this time, it was different. This time, there was no hiding, no pretending. It was just her, standing there, telling me that she was ready to face the consequences of her actions and try to rebuild our life together. For a moment, I didn't know how to respond. I wasn't sure if I could let go of everything that had happened. But at the same time, I couldn't ignore the small flicker of hope inside me. Maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild what had been broken. "I don't know, Katie," I said, my voice low. "I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't know if I can get past this." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. "But I'm willing to try. I'm willing to see if we can fix this. But it's not going to be easy. It's going to take time. And it's going to take work from both of us." She nodded, her eyes welling up with tears. "I understand. I don't expect it to be easy. But I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm ready to do the work, Tom. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." And in that moment, something shifted between us. It wasn't a magical fix, no sudden burst of clarity or understanding that made everything okay again. But it was a step forward. It was the first step toward healing, toward rebuilding what had been broken. It wasn't going to be easy. It wasn't going to be perfect. But I realized then that maybe it didn't need to be. Maybe we could still find a way to move forward, even with the scars. The days that followed were filled with small, but significant moments. Katie and I began to talk more, really talk, about the things we had neglected in our relationship, the things we had swept under the rug over the years. It wasn't always easy, and there were moments when the old wounds felt raw and tender. But we kept pushing forward, bit by bit. We spent more time together, working on the farm, taking small walks around the property, and slowly, we began to rebuild the trust we had lost. One afternoon, after a long day of working outside, Katie and I found ourselves sitting on the porch again, watching the sun dip behind the hills. The sky was darker now, the stars starting to twinkle faintly in the distance. It was a peaceful moment, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. Things weren't perfect, and I didn't know what the future held, but in that moment, I knew that maybe we were going to be okay. And then, just as I was starting to believe that we could make it through this, there was a knock on the door. I got up to answer it, only to find a man standing on the other side, a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, dressed in a suit, and there was something about him that immediately made my stomach tighten. "Are you Tom?" he asked, his voice calm but insistent. "I'm looking for Katie." My heart stopped. I had no idea who this man was or what he wanted, but I felt a sudden, cold unease wash over me. This was the moment I had been dreading, the moment when everything I thought I had started to rebuild could come crashing down once again.